Hey, what's up? Silas here. This is going to be a video about inconsistency. I don't like inconsistency. If you find me being inconsistent, please call me out on it. Let me know in the comment section. And let me just set up the background for this. This was in a post of somebody talking about what is the actual cause of the high crime rates in the black community in the United States of America. Are people saying there's a crime culture, or is it partly because culture develops over the environment? They're being subjected to years and years of poverty, or generations and generations, and this is a culture. There's some aspects of that that have developed due to the poverty. So that was a separate kind of argument and discussion we're talking about. But there was something here that kind of made me think about making this video. Let me read it for you. You're a product of your environment for the most part. Of course, there will always be people who will argue and point to the people that have come from impoverished areas and have more or less made it, and use that as an example of they did it, why can't the rest of them do it? Completely ignoring the fact that variables exist in every example and that the exceptions to the rule is not the rule. So this is a perfectly valid point, and yeah, people do this. People look at those people and say, oh, look at this guy. This guy happened to become a musician, or this person happened to have this talent, and this person happened to come out of there, and this person happened to get this scholarship. So yes, that shows that it can happen. But on the inverse of this, they don't look at the situation and say like, okay, a police has ended up shooting this black man. And they don't look at that situation and say, okay, well, majority of the interactions between police and black males don't result in the black male being shot. So we're not going to take those exceptions that have variables that change the situation to lead to the police to shoot this person. No, we're going to say this example, these fractional examples are going to be examples of a systematic racism of police towards black community. You know, they're not going to say things like that. They're not going to look at say, okay, look, yeah, we're looking at the top 1% in the world, and there's a lot of white people there, yet majority of the white communities actually just still living average lives. Majority of the people in the countryside and the rural areas living in farms, living in poverty levels. Majority of the people who are suffering an opioid crisis, similar to what the crack cocaine crisis was in the African American community years back, is white people. We're not going to look at them. We're not going to look at the people in the Appalachians who are actually suffering, who are in the same levels of poverty as anyone in an inner city environment. No, we're going to look at the top percent, and then we're going to say, look, that's indicative of white privilege. We're not going to look at majority of the interactions of men and women and see that they're normally amicable. There may be some confusions, there may be some things going off. Somebody might be like, oh, I find you attractive, let me actually try and get with you. The woman will say no, and then the person will just like, okay, that sucks, and then they'll move on. But they'll look at the situations where there's a small percentage of people who are actual predators, who will go out there and actually be sexual assaults and commit sexual assaults, be sexual predators, and then they'll say, look, this is indicative of a rape culture that we live in. This is male culture. We need to teach men not to rape. No, it's a similar thing. These are situations where you look at the small percentage of people who do something out of a community, and then you don't actually just broad brush the entire community over that. And just a small thing on the whole poverty thing. This whole term of saying like African American has a crime culture, it's not the entire culture because it's such a small percent within the actual African American black communities in the United States of America that actually do commit these crimes. It's mostly men between 16 and 35. So even if you had that whole situation where you're saying, yes, this is something, if you look at the culture now of those people, then they may be a crime culture within that subset of people, because all these different races and groups of people tend to have different subsets of cultures and things like that. You don't have your average 70-year-old grandmother in the inner city of any place in the United States of America having the same kind of crime rates as your average 16 to 17-year-old male in that same actual area. So that's just what I'm trying to say. Different cultures, different things. Don't take a small percentage of any group and say this is going to be indicative of everything else. Because as this person said, yes, variables do exist. Goodbye. Another thing that made me think of this whole situation, this whole lack of consistency that we see, is watching the Maury Povich show and then discovering the Jeremy Kyle show. Now, Maury Povich has this show in the United States of America. One of his most famous things is that you are not the father. People come on for paternity tests. Some woman has had sex with multiple people in a given window, so 2 weeks, 3 weeks around conception, doesn't know who the father is. some of these fathers have been paying child support. Well, anyway, it's some ratchet behavior, and then people are watching like, oh, look how disgusting the black community is in the United States of America, or other kind of ratchet things will have people dancing or people acting a fool and things like that, and say, oh, this is indicative of black culture. But then the Jeremy Kyle show is something I discovered, which is a show in the United Kingdom, has a similar kind of thing. Paternity tests, has lie detector tests, and these are people as ratchet as anything you can see on the Maury Povich show. I think he even had a stint in the United States of America, but this is mostly the United Kingdom. You guys should definitely watch it if you want. It's a YouTube channel. I found it. I watched pretty much a lot of the videos. He's a lot more ornery and gets at the people, insults the people a lot more than Maury Povich does. And that might also be like a racial thing. It might be like because the United States of America versus the UK, but I think him actually being able to be the same race as the people, he can go at them and just really call them some horrible things, be really rough on them. But anyway, when people watch that, they don't necessarily go in and say, look, this is indicative of people in the United Kingdom. This is indicative of white people. They realize that this is a subset of people within this larger group of people. So yeah, when's the last time that happened to you? When you kind of were like, hey, this kind of situation, I'm going to take these few people and judge everyone. But then this other situation, you notice that you're not doing the same thing. Or you feel offended when you get judged off of a situation that only applied to a few people.